Welcome, guys, to the second episode of the Real Virtual Show. I am your host, Malia Probst. I'm joined today by my guest co-host, the illustrious Joe Wilson. He's a director, he's a producer, he's a writer, he's a creator, he's a storyteller, and he's the creator of Vampire Mob and Play Shorts. Joe, thank you for joining us. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Malia. It's very cool to be here. And I've had you as a guest on the Blabulation a couple of times talking about virtual reality. And somehow, I don't know if it's just the way the tides are turning. It just seems like I am finding more and more stuff about virtual reality all the time, including literally like a minute before this, Facebook had announced they were doing some 360 thing with the phones.
Amazing. Absolutely. Yeah, Facebook has a lot of vested interest in this topic.
Yes,
and today we are joined by our honored guest. He is Toby Downton. He is a UK-based author and virtual reality creator. And Toby Downton, you have an enormous project, and we're going to delve into that in a minute. But first of all, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining. I appreciate you coming by.
Thank you very much for inviting me onto your show, Malia. I'm very excited to be here, especially since, like I said, this is really my first kind of little go on Blab. I only heard about it like maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago, and I immediately saw, what the fuss was about. Quite clearly it was Google Hangouts meets live streaming, and it's very simple to see the draw of it, within seconds. And like you said, you've got the comments going on the bar, and there's all these high fives going on, and it just looks like a lot of fun, basically.
This is a great platform, and we're very grateful that it exists and that it's around. So Toby, you are a published author, and you published a book called Solarversia. And it's kind of the tagline is the year-long game, and this is a virtual reality game that's going to be played by 100 million people in 2020. This is an enormous project, and it's so meta. This is so art imitating.
Exactly what I was thinking.
It really, really is. I would love it if you can kind of give us a little summary of what the novel is about, because the novel encompasses this beautiful world, this beautiful story, and then that virtual reality game that is kind of central to the novel. You are actually building the virtual reality game from the novel in real life. And so that is going to launch in 2020. I'd love to unpack that a bit.
Sure. So, that is certainly the ultimate aim. I mean, let's just start, first of all, with what Solarversia is. So at the minute, Solarversia is a book. It's a book that I've written that showcases a real-world game that starts in the year 2020, like you say. It's played by 100 million people in virtual reality. And the virtual world is itself called Solarversia. So name of the book is the name of the virtual world. And it's called Solarversia because the virtual world is modeled on the real world solar system. And I chose it to be modeled on the real world solar system because I'm a first time author. Like, I haven't written anything since high school. And there was
why not write something extremely complicated? Well, my brain just reading the description of it. Why not start with that? Start with something that hasn't happened ever before.
Exactly. So there was lots of stuff that was already, really complicated. So it was like, right, how can I make this as easy as possible for myself? And there were some decisions that I made that did that. So, okay, it's the real world solar system. So at least I can kind of use Wikipedia and so on to look up questions that I had. And most of it actually takes place on Earth. The game itself is a knockout game. So 100 million people, but throughout the year, these people get knocked out. And I also use some fairly standard gaming conventions. So again, making it easy, each player has 3 lives. Each of those lives has 100 health points. They have 3 vehicles to get around the virtual world in: a car, a boat, and a plane. There are magical items in the world, similar to how any computer game works. And for traveling slightly longer distances, there are teleport machines for which you need to earn.
And so all of those are within the virtual reality game, within the novel.
Yes, so all of this so far is within the virtual reality game in the novel. So that's basic. That's the basics of how the game works. But then, okay, so the first thing that I was kind of faced with as someone writing a book that had to appeal to people was, well, what's the real world angle here? So someone winning £10 million in from playing a virtual game. What's the kind of real world stakes, as it were? And that's when I have introduced there are 3 perspectives in total. So we follow Nova, the protagonist. So she's an 18-year-old gamer and the kind of main character playing the game. But we also follow from the perspective of a guy called Artie, who is the CEO of Spiralwerks, the company behind the game. So we're kind of looking behind the scenes, as it were. And also the perspective of a guy called Casey Brown, who has just been newly initiated into a terrorist organization. And as you know, Malia, because you've read some of the book, these 3 perspectives, they become interweaved as the year-long game progresses, leading to the climax. So that's the kind of basics of the game. There's the actual virtual game itself going on with all these 100 million people going around the solar system, trying to essentially not lose their lives, aiming to win this big prize money, as well as all this real life stuff going on. And like you said, the meta piece comes in, where essentially I wrote the book as to showcase this game that I would like to build for real. I'm only at the very, very early, the very, very beginning stages of that. So I have incorporated the company Spiralwerks, the company behind the game. I've incorporated them in the real world, and I hope to bring aspects of the book to life slowly over time. I mean, where I'm at now, the book only came out 6-7 weeks ago. Recently, the last couple of weeks, I've been concentrating all my time on the audio book. So I don't know if you guys, ever, or anyone listening here actually listens to audiobooks. How's it coming along? It's coming. Yeah. So that was recorded 2 weeks ago I got on board one of the top voice artists in the world. So a guy called Peter Kenny. So if you, hello, Toby. I love your Abbey, Downton Abbey. Very good. Sorry, just reading a random comment on the feed there. So I've hired a guy called Peter Kenny, one of the top voice artists in the world. So this guy has over 100 credits to his name, like book titles to his name. He's the guy that narrated all of Ian Banks's books. He's absolutely amazing. And when I put my book on ACX, which is the kind of platform behind Audible, and people started auditioning for it, I got my fan base to help me kind of rate the auditions that were coming in. And there was this one guy who has been asking for the audiobook for ages. And he rated them all. And he was like, right, this person's 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 7 out of 10. And he said, that's... You
really already, for a book that has really come out very recently, this is very new news. For something that came out so recently, Toby, you already have quite a few super fans. When I was kind of poking around, it was like there are people who have really embraced this novel and are so excited to be able to kind of join it. And I think that's such an interesting kind of aspect of this, that there are already super fans to this novel.
Well, okay, yes, you're right, and obviously that's been amazing, and that's pretty much down to the fact that I did a lot of marketing starting very early on. So I think anyone who's watching who is either writing a book or would really like to write one, the biggest mistake that self-published authors can make, or even traditionally published authors can make, is to completely ignore the marketing side of things. Mm-hmm. I think that something a lot of people do is they spend all this time. You can get it on Amazon, by the way, Lee. A big mistake people make, they spend all this time writing the book, and then they publish it and they kind of send out an email to friends and family. They go, here you go, guys, it's ready. And they kind of sell, a bunch of copies, and that's it. I spent a year solid leading up to publication, marketing to people. So for me, it was made slightly easier because Solarversia is similar to a book called Ready Player One. So if there's anyone watching who's interested in VR, especially reading about games played in VR, the big book is Ready Player One, which is currently being adapted for the big screen by Steven Spielberg. ETA on the audio book, Mark, I'd say 3 weeks. I'm hoping early December. It's literally being mastered as we speak. Then I think Amazon take a couple of weeks to approve it. So I'd say 3 weeks.
Amazing. The fact that, so in the novel, within the reality of the story, the company that is behind the game Solarversia is called Spiralwerks. Yeah. In real life, you have incorporated Spiralwerks. Yeah. And so that's the actual corporation that you were using for all of this marketing and all of the fundraising. That's, again, this is so life imitating art, imitating life. But again, you incorporated that, correct?
I did indeed. So the big plan is to put money from book sales, merchandise, etc., into the company, thereby making it investable from a VC perspective. So like I said, again, I'm still at the very early stages of this. And what I'm hoping is that following the launch of the audio book, which is an additional revenue stream, and essentially leading up to the launch of Oculus Rift next year, that enough excitement builds around the book that a traditional publisher gets interested. And again, that money goes into the pot and allows me to then take it to the next level. Because like I said to everyone all along, this thing only happens if there's enough support for it. You just spoke about the fact that I've got a number of, what you called super fans, which I think is true, but they probably number about 250 people who have turned out to be real big, fans of this. I probably need 10,000 super fans for it to then, really, really escalate. But the whole purpose of publishing it when I did 31st of August was that it gave that kind of 6-month window to build leading up to the launch of Oculus Rift. So what I'm hoping is, so Mark Zuckerberg has said Q1 launch for Oculus Rift, and I'm thinking that's probably going to be the latter part of Q1, given that a date hasn't been announced. And I think that, that gives enough time. And when that launches, there's going to be lots of people going, virtual reality, it's going to be on the news the whole time. And I'm hoping that I can go, hello, I'm an author who's written a book about virtual reality. Please get me on your radio show, TV show, etc. So hopefully I'll have had, it's already had a great reception on Goodreads, Amazon, lots of positive reviews. So I've had enough feedback to know that it's not too shabby.
Quick question: going back to the much more practical pen on paper or words on screen, how did you map a story that is linear and a book about a game that is virtual reality that I'm guessing is less linear?
How did I map it?
Like in terms of like if I write something, I usually have like major plot points, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So as a first-time writer, how did you put together the story that turned out to be the book, or did you just sit down and start typing and it magically appeared?
Absolutely not. So I started writing this thing 3 days after Facebook bought Oculus Rift, and I spent 3 months solidly just on the plot. And I used a book then. It was a book by an American woman called K.M. Weiland. It's called Structuring Your Novel. I'm sure if someone can look that book up, K.M. Weiland, Structuring Your Novel, it basically talks in great depth about, surprise, surprise, how you structure a novel. So, I knew the very basics. It's actually W-E-I is Weiland. Thank you, Malia. That's great.
Of course.
And she goes into great depth about how to structure the book. So in terms of your first plot point, the midpoint, second plot point, and all of the different things you need in there and at what point. So that was the book that I used, Joe, that helped me, so much.
Is that a virtual reality sound or an actual sound?
It's a virtual reality sound.
Cool.
So in the book, in the novel, within the reality of the story, Nova, our protagonist, our 18-year-old protagonist, she's a really, really fun character. First of all, I'm definitely reminded of Katniss in Hunger Games. And this book, Solarversia, has been described as kind of a cross between The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and Hunger Games. And really, as I've been reading, I'm about 40% of the way through. That's what my Kindle is telling me right now. But as I'm going through this and I'm exploring this world and these characters, it's so vivid, it's so vibrant. And our protagonist, Nova, again, she's an 18-year-old gamer who becomes kind of consumed by this game. And so I've heard this kind of interesting overall philosophical question about virtual reality. And people are comparing, asking sort of why virtual reality, how is virtual reality going to happen, is sort of like asking, why is the internet here? Why is the internet happening? And I really see that question, that kind of overarching philosophical idea really kind of come to life in your narrative. The way Nova and her friends participate in this virtual reality game is they log on, they all have their individual headsets, but they also come together in real life within the novel to be able to log in through gaming cafes and bars. And it seems like that logging in to a virtual world is very comparable to what we do today in terms of logging onto the internet or logging into a chat room, logging onto Blab. I find that so interesting. How can you kind of expound upon that idea about how pervasive virtual reality will end up being to our lives?
Well, yeah, I mean, the first thing to note is that, again, Mark Zuckerberg spent $2 billion buying Oculus. I mean, that was a huge statement right there about how big VR is going to be. And he spoke about, in the kind of press release that was around that purchase, he said that it's not just about gaming. It's about social. And, I've been thinking about this. So my wife is from New Zealand, so she's a Kiwi, and we speak pretty much every day to her mum, who's still in New Zealand, so she can speak to our daughter, her granddaughter. And obviously, Skype is absolutely incredible technology, just to think how amazing that is, and it's just an incredible tool. Yet, at the same time, it's also limited. And it's like, what I see is VR taking that kind of interaction to the next level, being able to be in a shared space with someone, probably interacting with their 3D avatar, which is probably going to be a pretty good approximation of the real them, because already out there is this amazing 3D scanning technology. Like, I was at a VR meetup here in London a few months ago, and that technology, it exists right now. They had an iPad and they scanned someone in, and there in the room in front of us, a 3D mesh appeared.
With an iPad.
And this is just using the camera
with
on the
an
iPad.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
And okay, so that 3D mesh wasn't moving, it wasn't animated yet, but it's only a matter of time, right? So, we all scan ourselves in using our phones. That's here now. That technology is only going to get better. And then, we're putting our headsets on, and I'm speaking to you guys, but not staring at a screen, looking at these little squares of you, but I've got my headset on and we're in a 3D environment, wherever that is. And, I'm hoping it's going to be on a beach somewhere, or maybe a penthouse apartment. And, there's a whole bunch of us there. And it takes...
How nice is it going to be when we can do business meetings across the world on a beach, on a virtual beach?
Exactly. It's going to be so good. And what that means, what it enables us to not just speak to one another, but also to create with one another, because we'll have in front of us, a table, and we can create 3D objects on it. And, you can say, Malia, well, how about we do this? And we can actually create stuff together in those 3D environments. It's going to be amazing.
But why do we have to look like we really look? Who came up with that idea, virtual reality? Why can't we make things a little bit better? Maybe because it's virtual. Why not, make everybody, I'm gonna have a full head of thick, gorgeous hair in virtual reality. That's my plan. Why
limit yourself,
Toby?
So was that a question, Joe?
So, well, what keeps virtual reality from reality and virtual? If we're scanning ourselves in, why aren't we scanning ourselves in and running a little Photoshop and maybe giving ourselves a tan?
Oh, I mean, well, why not indeed?
Right.
And, for instance, in Solarversia, actually, you scan yourself in at the start, and that's your normal avatar. And you have a secondary avatar, something called a super avatar, which I think is what you're talking about. And as the year progresses,
an above average avatar.
Yeah, exactly. You can tweak it.
I have a really good memory, and I organize well.
So I would remove the grey hairs. I would probably make myself, a little bit more butch, etc. And your super avatar can look like what you want it to look like. And as the year progresses, your normal avatar turns into your super avatar. But you're absolutely right. We're going to be inhabiting these worlds in all kinds of bodies. I would have thought. Who wants to be a human all the time when you can be an animal or a robot or a plant or who knows what?
Yeah, that's part of what I find so engaging and inspirational about virtual reality is that potential ability to look like and experience life as something else.
Absolutely. And, that's what people are saying, one of the big draws of VR is the fact that you'll be able to inhabit the kind of world, the life of someone else, and they're calling it the ultimate empathy machine. For me, living, experiencing life as a woman, or a person of different color, what have you, someone with a disability, it's going to be fascinating experience and really eye-opening. And I think some changes going on in there in terms of our kind of consciousness.
But also, can't we be bad people? Can't we do the horrible things that we want to do in virtual reality? Because I can see the dystopian future, and when Blee's been on my Blab show, I have painted the scenario where Los Angeles is just a place that's filled with apartment buildings that have skeletons with VR sets on them.
Hey, the traffic would be better.
They're not unplugging. They're never
then.
leaving. They're just if virtual reality is going to be even better, and we can do exactly what we want with no laws, nothing stopping us. Why would we want empathy? Why would we not want more? I guess if you look at the crappy television, crappy television has good ratings, which is why they keep making crappy television. So wouldn't crappy VR be more popular?
Okay.
In terms of
I'm not going to argue with that point. Absolutely, we're going to be doing all the things we do in Grand Theft Auto and all the other games, and shooting people, killing people, what have you. But there is, of course, the kind of more serious side to it as well. And there's some, comments in there, Mark, talking about it being abused. I think that's absolutely true. It's true of every single technology that man has created. It's been used and abused. So I think he's absolutely right there.
I think that there's a great potential for using those kind of intense, physical, potentially violent experiences in virtual reality as a sort of catharsis. I think that there's definitely an argument to be made for that side of things. And then I also think that there's an argument to be made about that this could be traumatic for some people. This could have negative health consequences from virtual experience, have negative health consequences in real life. And so kind of sort of going on with that point, in the novel Solarversia, Nova and her friends are so immersed in this game. They love this game so much. They love going into the world so much that it really starts to hinder their real world activities. And it starts to kind of have a lot of conflict with Nova's schoolwork, with her family relations, and video game addiction has been well documented. Very well documented. And where do you see that going with respect to when video games get even more immersive and even more engaging, and you're actually surrounded by the environment that you're playing? Do you think what do you think about that potential for virtual reality addiction? Do you think that with virtual reality that's going to be enhanced?
So I so think that's going to be the case. Like you said, there was that case, wasn't there, of some guy in Korea basically dying because he had played. And I shouldn't laugh. It's not funny, but he played whatever online game it was for 48 hours non-stop. Maybe
I think it was Second Life.
Was it Second? Okay.
I think it was Second Life.
Whatever he was playing, he was so absorbed by it that he basically barely left his seat, maybe to go to the toilet a couple of times, and then just dropped dead. And I'm not sure exactly what it was that killed him, but it was pretty much his addiction to that game, to that experience that killed him. And what we're talking about here,
Someone will die on Blab.
Oh,
it's going down.
Well, and of course VR takes that. Well, it takes immersion to the next level. That's the one word that's been thrown around, and it truly does immerse you. So I think that addiction is going to be taken to a whole new level. But further to that, you're wearing this thing that's wrapped around your eyes, and I think that it's only been a matter of time before we hear of someone who has died because they've been wearing it around the house and fallen down the stairs. They've walked out in front of traffic. That's
right.
Not an if. That is 100% when.
People are texting and killing people. So why would getting a hold like having the best text ever? There's no way you're going to pay attention to anything else.
Exactly. No VR and driving, as someone's just said. And there's been stuff in the papers this last week. I don't know if you saw it. People who are abusing the Tesla autopilot function. So Tesla, the electric car, and it's got this autopilot function. There's been footage uploaded to YouTube of people who are basically not even in the driver's seat. And
I've seen it.
Elon Musk has been like, yeah, this is being abused. We're going to try and sort this out. It's like people use and abuse technology, and people are going to die in VR. There's absolutely no question of that. And Malia, to go back to your point, yes, we're all absolutely going to be addicted to it and going to want to live in it the whole time.
You sound so excited about it. You have a big grin on your face as you're saying we're going to be addicted to it.
VR interventions. Look, we love you, we care about you, but really, you have to stop pooping in the living room with that thing on.
Yeah. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how it plays out. Let's put it that way.
Speaking, I want to touch upon this point about the novel, and then we'll go over to some of the questions that have been submitted, and then we're going to open up that last seat. So speaking about people dying in real life from virtual reality, in the reality of Solarversia, there's a really interesting aspect of it that a character in the novel, and I won't tell you which one because I don't want to spoil the ending or the middle or whatever, one of the characters dies. And so our protagonist, Nova, is actually able to continue a relationship with this person who died in real life with an application that has a it's a virtually rendered version of this person's body and her avatar. And then Nova's actually able to go into this virtual application and sit and talk with this artificial intelligence powered virtual avatar of the dead character. I think I gave it away.
No one was thinking.
But do you think that's actually going to work in the future? Do you think Do you think that's really going to happen? And should that happen? Should people never die?
Okay, yeah. So first things first. To anyone interested in the concept of bringing someone back to life, that whole part of the book is inspired by an episode of a show called Black Mirror. I don't know if. Okay, so Black Mirror, written by a very, very clever guy, a British guy called Charlie Brooker, and these are kind of six episodes per series, and each one of them explores an element of kind of futuristic technology. And it was one of those episodes that, in particular, explores the notion of bringing, someone back from the dead in this way by essentially sucking in all of their kind of their digital footprint, as it were, all of their emails, all the information from their social profiles, text messages, etc., adding that to what we were talking about earlier, like their kind of 3D rendered avatar, add in the kind of audio that's saved from, things like this, Malia, the kind of blab talks we're having. And, you're talking about kind of pulling someone back from the dead. Absolutely, 100%. I think that's going to happen. Okay, not by 2020. So, right, that it's a novel. So I'm an author. I'm allowed to take liberties with things like timelines, right?
It's poetic license. You can do whatever you want.
Poetic license, in the same way that the kind of technology in the book, is probably actually some way after 2020. I've been a little bit generous there in saying 2020, but I don't think it's much beyond that. There are companies right now who are doing the whole will bring you back to life thing. There's already companies that do that, and it's I think by 2030, mid 2030s, I think this thing is going to be fully underway.
Wow.
And then we're talking about the next level, which is brain scanning and mind uploading, maybe 2040, which is obviously just so ridiculously sci-fi that, we can't even imagine what that's going to be like.
Amazing. 2030, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm going to pin this question here from Mark. And so he would like to know, Toby, what came first, the chicken or the egg? What came first, interest in writing or interest in virtual reality?
So I saw that question. Good question. So it was absolutely, had no interest.
Hey, Toby, would you mind calling back in? We lost you there for a moment. Yeah, Joe and Toby just bailed. It's just me now, guys. I'm so sorry. I heard it. I was hearing you for a while, Toby. And it's the Malia Show now. And we're just going to talk about virtual reality in a vacuum, because why not? But yeah, if you guys have not, if this is the first time you're hearing about this novel, Solarversia, I would definitely recommend checking it out. Like I mentioned, I'm about 40% of the way through on my Kindle version, and it's really good. It's a really, really good book. I used to, I read so much fiction growing up. This is one of those things that is so much fun. This is really, really an engaging novel. This is a great bit of fiction. And what's even more amazing is the fact that this bit of fiction is going to become reality. So I would definitely check this out. It's available on Amazon if you'd like the hard copy, and you can get it on Kindle as well, which is what I'm enjoying currently.
Can you see us again, Malia?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Fantastic. So Mark's question was, which came first, writing or VR? I had a vision. I had a vision about this game back in 2010 after kind of searching what to do in my life, and entered the world of kind of digital startups to try and create the company. And when I realized that would be very, very hard, I wrote a book as a promotional vehicle for it. So it's totally been the vision about the game that drove me to write the book.
So there was no plans to write a book prior to 2010 ever?
Not
a thriller set on the London Stock Exchange?
Not in the slightest. But what I discovered was that I loved writing, and just right quickly as we're talking about it, I'm currently writing. You wouldn't call it a sequel. What I'm actually referring to it as is an expansion pack. Because, of course, it's a book about a game, and you get expansion packs in games. And so I'm currently writing an expansion pack, which is the Earth force field stories. There are 10 force field switches. We only learn about 2 of them in the book. So I'm writing the other 8 stories right now, and those will come out probably from March onward next year, hopefully 1 a month, like Kindle singles.
Very cool.
So is that, I guess that wouldn't be a prelude to the novel then. That would be the expansion pack. That would be expanding upon the concept.
Exactly, yes. And then, the big idea, like I said, so book, it'd be fantastic. if I was to be able to sell the movie rights that came out before the Real World game in 2020, and the ultimate vision would be book, movie, real game, book, movie, real game, because the year-long game is a quadrennial event. So every 4 years, 2020, 24, 28, at least it is in the book anyway. And, it would be lovely if that came off. But like I said, early days. And thank you to Good Mum's Guide, who just purchased the book. That's very kind.
Very cool. I did just open up that fourth seat, guys. So if you'd like to call in and ask some questions, or perhaps offer your perspective on this specifically and on virtual reality in general, perhaps you have some questions about how virtual reality and augmented reality could affect you and your industry and your space. And this is an opportunity for so many entrepreneurs and so many creatives to really, really expand their repertoire with this technology, with this amazing emerging space. There's really going to be so much opportunity. And I know that on Blab, there are a lot of people who are creatives, and there are a lot of people who are entrepreneurs. So this is a space to kind of pay attention to. Absolutely. Colleen has a great question, Toby. She asks if you've been working in or around virtual reality or tech.
Okay, so yeah, great question. And so, funnily enough, there were two big things that really kind of inspired me to actually write the book. The first one I mentioned earlier, and that was the Facebook purchase of Oculus Rift. So 2 billion purchases. Like, wow, that's a big statement. There's no better time in history to write this thing. It just so happened that I was working on a client project at the time for a guy called Lewis Jebb, who is quite big in the UK media industry. And also following the Facebook purchase, the project that we were working on, which was a news site for him, he basically came into the next meeting and he was like, right, Facebook have just bought them, I want to do VR. And I was then one of the people who worked on the project with him, kind of helping to create what would be called a kind of VR agency, a company that created VR content for other people. So I kind of worked on that in the very early stages. Apart from that, I've attended lots of meetups in London. Another guy called Steve Dan puts on the augmenting reality meetup. So I know quite a lot of people in the kind of London VR startup scene, as it were, and have obviously been trying to immerse myself in that scene, in the last year to learn as much as I can about it.
Very cool.
There's kind of an interesting, so the antagonist in Solarversia, kind of the evil overlord, if you will. He's kind of the head of this cyber terrorist organization called the Holy Order. And he has a bionic arm that is hooked up to a quantum supercomputer that is implanted, that hooks up to an electrode implanted in his brain. So he wirelessly controls all of the robots controlled by this terrorist organization, the Holy Order. And he's a very interesting character. But that kind of dystopian future that is forecast by the Holy Order in the novel, how do you see that really going in real life? Do you think that, this is in popular culture, this has always kind of been discussed and very in very fearful ways. But it seems like you have perhaps a positive outlook on the maybe eventual merging of machines and humans.
The merger of man and machine. So let's first kind of admit, as it were, that we've been merging with technology for a long time now. Into hearing aids, glasses, pacemakers for hearts, etc. Mm-hmm. It's just taking that to the next level, right? I'm an unbridled optimist. And again, I think this relates back to the earlier point we're making. Obviously, some people are going to abuse this. Some people are going to merge with technology, and they're going to want to do the whole Wolverine thing where you've got spikes coming out of your knuckles.
I didn't even think of that. Now I want that.
Exactly. How cool would that be? They're going to be implanting guns, what have you. But again, it's going to be like, I think 99% used for good. I hope.
That is definitely an optimist way of looking at it, but I always respect positivity. Ronnie, what is going on? Thank you so much for popping in and saying hello. Good to see you. Oh no,
there's no sound. Your sound
audio. The lips are moving.
It's virtual reality without sound.
But that kind of merging of that's an excellent point. And I actually had not really thought about it in terms of that before. Like, hey, I wear contacts. How is that any different? Well, it's a little bit different, but it's kind of a precursor to having, and the positives of amputees or people who have lost limbs or burn victims being able to have limbs that are bionic and controllable by your brain. I think that there's enormous potentiality for positivity.
Exactly. It is taking that to the next level. You're right that we don't view these things at the moment as being merged with our technology, because we can take our glasses off, remove our hearing aids, take our contact lenses out. And the kind of changes that we're talking about are probably going to be a bit more permanent than that and a lot more drastic. But again, it's absolutely, there's no stopping it for a start. And I think that the positives are just going to far, far outweigh the negatives.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right, sir. Ronnie, how you doing? We'll try it again.
No audio, man.
No audio. Do you have headphones?
He had all these great points, and I was hoping that he would say all of them so I don't have to read them all out.
He has really, really good points. Yeah, if you have like audio enabled headphones, just little Apple earbuds, those work pretty well.
The other interesting thing when I was reading the dope that Malia sent over on the book, and which we've touched on, this idea of having someone exist who is no longer alive in virtual reality would, and again, I keep going dystopian because I'm a compassionate pessimist. I don't think it's going to work out, and I'm really sorry.
I've never heard that phrase before, and I'm stealing it. I will attribute properly, of course.
It used to be my stand-up opener, and that's why I didn't do well in a lot of drunk bars. What did he just say? I don't know.
What? That was way too complex.
So the idea that if someone who was close to you could exist virtually, then would again, dark dystopian future, would the person, wouldn't you, like, even if it was your dog, your cat, and you wanted to spend time with your dead dog or cat in virtual reality, and if that was now your former partner or whatever, wouldn't that take hold of everything just emotionally, where you can fill in parts of your life with this virtual thing and maybe leave reality a little too much because it's better? You know what I'm saying, Toby? I mean, it's like when I read that, I was just like, there's people who would like set up their dead husband, dead wife in virtual reality and spend all their time hanging out with them.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. But, to me, it's like, well, if I was given the choice, if someone I loved died and it's the choice of, okay, they're completely gone forever, or there's this virtual approximation of them, which, for sure at the start isn't going to be 100% like them. Let's say it's 80% approximation. Right. And I kind of touch on this actually in the book, the fact that this person who's brought back to life isn't, exactly the same as she was. There's this kind of, approximation. But, okay, let's put it this way. you know, someone close, a loved one of yours dies, and I have a box of photos of that person, and I go, Joe, I've got this box of photos. Do you want them? Otherwise, I'm going to throw them onto the skip. Like, I don't want them because I didn't know this person. Do you want the photos? Every single time you're going to say, Toby, I would love to have those photos. And, you know, you're going to sit there and you're going to go through them and you're going to, you know, laugh and you're going to cry and you're going to be very glad that you've got these, you know, mementos of the loved one. We're talking about taking that to the next level. Joe, I've built a virtual, you know, I've virtually recreated your loved one. Do you want to come and say hello? So maybe not, because you're going to be a bit freaked out. But I think a lot of people are just going to say yes. Ronnie. He's trying.
So can you connect your mic on the browser? Well, jump in the comments.
Hannah had a great point. She said something. If you click on the little camera icon in the URL bar, there's a drop down to choose your mic. FYI. How's it going? You know, I'll just learn sign language.
That won't take much time.
Fine. Although I think that I still remember the sign language alphabet from learning it in like 5th grade.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't really know why I remember it, but you know, perhaps. So in Solarversia, all of our hero Nova, all of her vehicles have been modified to look like they came from the set of Tron.
Absolutely.
And you explicitly say that, you know, that she purposely modified all of her virtual vehicles to look like they came right off the set of Tron. So obviously that's something that you really, really enjoy, and that was an aesthetic that really inspired you. Can you touch upon that? What are some other inspirations besides Tron, or in addition to Tron, for virtual reality and augmented reality? What are some good recommendations?
Yeah. So why Tron? I mean, I absolutely love the aesthetic. I don't know. Can you see the picture I've just posted? Is that coming up? All right. Did it not come through?
No.
Damn.
Oh well.
I posted a little. The picture of her vehicles. So I love the aesthetic. I love the film. You know, the fact that there's this guy trapped in this computer game, and you know the aesthetic and the Tron bikes and the rest of it. So you know, I was a big fan of that film. There's other inspirations, things that come through in the book. So one of the characters is a guy called Emperor Mandelbrot, and he's this kind of big blobby character that raises through the floor in the first instance on this kind of circular dais, inspired by Jabba the Hutt.
I was going to ask you if Jabba the Hutt was your inspiration for that character.
Absolutely.
Oh, all right.
You know, so there's little things like that have crept in, little kind of nods of the head to various people I know. You know, various friends of mine get referenced in certain ways, and that was one of the things that I loved, you know, about writing a book. You know, being able to play God essentially and include little bits and pieces there, and you know, the guys, Nova attends a Star Wars themed party at one point. Maybe you haven't even got to that bit of the book yet, Malia. You know, so there's lots of little bits and pieces in there.
Don't ruin the plot.
Yeah, la la la.
I love it. And actually, if you have a link to that photo that you tried to post, if you happen to have a link, Bobby was requesting that. If you do, and if you don't now, you guys can probably.
I can easily get that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and Twitter is always nice to be able to follow up as well. But Anyway, so I want to answer this one last question, and of course it won't pin for some reason, but I want to kind of answer this. Oh, here we go. I want to answer this one last question from Colleen. I'm going to pin this really quick, and she wants to know if you discovered anything or unexpected or anything interesting when you were doing virtual reality research for the novel.
Discover anything interesting / unexpected. You know what? Nothing is springing to mind, Colleen, and I know what's going to happen. I'm going to be on the train. I'm going to be on the tube on the way home this evening when I suddenly remember just the most unexpected thing that did happen during the book. And it's going to be really obvious as well, but nothing is springing to mind right now. I mean, well, okay, the unexpected thing that happened was that I discovered that I absolutely love writing. You know, as we were saying earlier from a different question, I never wanted to write, never had any interest in it whatsoever. So the unexpected thing that came out of it, you know, not necessarily doing VR research for the book, but the thing that did come out of it was that I love writing, and I'm now writing this expansion pack, and it's like, you know, it's such an amazing process doing the plotting and kind of turning it into a story.
Very cool.
That is awesome, and we are coming up on our time here. Joe,
I'm
please.
just going to grab Ronnie's point that he was going to make since he typed it all. He says, I was just going to comment that I see communities being built for people who lost loved ones being created too. I worked in retail sales selling mobile plans and services to B2B, C2C. And I remember one customer always coming in and paying his deceased wife's cell phone bill. When I got to know him, I asked him why he does it. And he told me that he calls to hear his wife's voice. And when he is sad or happy or wants to share his day, he calls her to leave a message. I see this happening in VR too. Yeah. And wow. I had someone I don't know got in touch with me from someone I do know, and her fiance got killed in Iraq, and she had voicemails, tons of them, and she had no way to get them off. And I was and so they got in touch with me, and I called in and recorded all the voicemail messages and digitized them, and it was the least fun thing I've ever done. But I completely see your point, and yeah, I can't see VR not having that, and I think it's there's some interesting buttons that VR pushes that in human beings that there just hasn't been an opportunity to push all at the same time. The level of suspension of disbelief is like a drug.
Yeah. You know, so in the book, Nova visits her friends in what I kind of thought of as a virtual shrine. She sits on a bench overlooking Seattle. To me, that was a virtual shrine. That was where this character lived. And, you know, these things are going to exist, right? They're going to be the virtual equivalent of going to a grave, essentially. And I think that, you know, for the kind of your dead celebrities, you know, your people like Elvis and, you know, Jimi Hendrix and so on.
Elvis is still alive. So
sorry, I retract Elvis, who clearly lives. Jimi Hendrix, you know, John Lennon, etc. The people who own their estates are going to one day be forced with a question with, okay, what do we do with this VR thing? Mm-hmm. And of course, you know, they'll create a VR experience where no doubt you'll kind of turn up and you'll experience their life, right? You know, this is taking filmmaking to a new level. It's, hey, here's the John Lennon experience, you know, here's his life. And he personally will probably take you through parts of that, the avatar of John Lennon. And who's not going to want to do, you know, experiences like that for their dead heroes?
Like Tupac as a hologram at Coachella a couple of years ago.
They have the holograms already. It's crazy.
Michael Jackson show, exactly. It's exactly that. That's a good point. You know, it's taking that to the next level.
Amazing. We are running up on our time here. Joe, thank you so much for co-hosting. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. And Toby, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for letting us kind of pick your brain. This has been enormously informative for me. And it's been kind of fascinating to kind of hear a little bit more about your creative process, because I've really been enjoying the book. And as we end, would you mind just telling us once more where we can find Solarversia?
Okay, I mean, well, we can find it on Amazon. So let me just ping a little link to it on Amazon. I think Joe did earlier, but there it is again. There's a link to the book. So at the minute, just Kindle, or if you prefer a physical copy. And as per earlier, coming in about 3 weeks, the audio book, which I'm very, very excited about, because it's been narrated by Peter Kenny, one of the top voice artists in the world. I've already heard one of the chapters, and he brings it to life. Like, you know, it takes it to the next level, and I'm very excited about that. And thank you, Malia and Joe, for having me on. I've really, really enjoyed my first ever Blab experience. You know, I'm already thinking about, getting on here again. It's awesome.
There you go. You guys heard it here. So follow Toby so you can stay tuned and further pick his brain and other blabs. Again, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you being here. Enjoy the rest of your day, and hope to see you next week.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.